Okay, Psalm 24. Great psalm. Says, "The earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell in it. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Who may ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who may stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to an idol, nor sworn deceitfully. He shall receive blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of his salvation. This is Jacob, the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face. Selah. Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O you gates, lift up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts, he is the King of glory." Praise the Lord. The Psalms are full of messages which are relevant to people who live in the New Testament dispensation as we do, and some of them actually speak about things which were to come in Yeshua, in Jesus the Messiah. If you look in this psalm very carefully, you see there are three themes in it. The first one in the first two verses tells you that the earth is the Lord's, that God made it, that it belongs to him. Verses 3 to 6 tell you that, ask the question, who may stand in his holy place? How can we, who are made in the image of God, and yet who are sinners, come into the presence of a holy God? And verses 7 to 10, lift up your heads, O you gates, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is the King of glory? And it's a question which actually opens the door to us coming into a relationship with God, and also to Jesus coming into this world to take control of it at the second coming. So we'll look at those three themes tonight. First of all, God as creator. If you read through the Bible, you'll find that from Genesis right through to Revelation, God is revealed as the creator. Not just in Genesis chapter 1. If you want to take God out of the creation, you've got to take him out of most of the rest of the scriptures. First verse of the Bible tells you in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Doesn't discuss it, doesn't debate it, doesn't give you any other ideas, just tells you that's what happened. God created the heavens and the earth. Goes on to describe how God created the heavens and the earth, and it comes to the creation of humanity, human beings. And in verse 26 it says, God says, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God made man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then God blessed them. God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." It tells you a number of things which are very significant about the human race. It tells you that we are made in the image of God. Does that mean we look like God or God looks like us? Well, we don't know what God looks like, but he did reveal himself in a human form in the person of Jesus Christ, Yeshua the Messiah. He also made us with a spiritual nature, so we are actually different from the animals in that we have a spirit part of us which is able to communicate with God. And that's very important. Problem of the human race actually is that that spirit part of us has died at the fall of man in Genesis chapter 3 when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, and all the problems which came in as a result of that, as they broke the one commandment which God gave them, not to eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and opened the way for Satan to come in and to take them away from God. And God's purpose from that time on has been to redeem us, to bring us back to himself. But whether we are in an unredeemed state or not, we are still made in the image of God. And you find that right through the Bible, from Genesis through to Revelation, there is passages which speak about God as the creator. In Revelation chapter 4, verse 6, it says, "You are worthy, O God, Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created." So God created all things, he created them by his will and for his purpose. And if God created them for his purpose, that means they were actually created for a purpose, not just random and accidental. God made the world for a purpose, and he has a purpose that means for you and me, for the human race within that creation. Read also in the New Testament that Yeshua, Jesus, was there at creation. and the world exists through him. John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, all things were made through him, without him nothing was made that was made. In other words, Jesus was there at the beginning, God from eternity, and all that exists was created through him. And it says, the Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So defining who that Word is, the Word is the one through whom God made the heavens and the earth, who is Jesus, who has revealed himself in human form. So we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. And in the epistle to the Colossians, Paul writes, all things were created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things consist. Telling us there that Jesus was there at the beginning. He was always been there. All things were created through him. He's before all things. In other words, he is before the creation. He's existed from eternity to eternity. Therefore, he is God. An interesting verse, it says, in him all things consist. One other translation of the verb consist is are held together. In him all things are held together. And some people have actually observed, looking at atoms, and everything is made of atoms, that they have an electric charge which by nature should actually fall apart. And there is something which is holding all the atoms together. And they've even called this the Colossian force, because they can't actually reason why all things are held together. And if it's God who's holding all these things together, then in Jesus, in Yeshua, everything which exists is being held together. And if he removes that force, then everything's going to fall apart. And it does say at the end of days that the heavens and the earth are going to be burned up and God's going to make a new one. So you can see that these verses actually speak about something very fundamental to our existence here on the earth. And all these passages also imply that we, the human race, are created for a purpose. We're not an accident. We come here by the will of God. It means we're significant. If we're made in the image of God, that means we have a significance as God has a significance. And we have a significance as we relate to God. In fact, Genesis tells us God created the human race to look after the earth which he had made in relation to him. Told us to be fruitful and multiply, made them male and female. So there's a distinct reason why he made us male and female, and that we are different, and that if you're a male, you can't become a female, and if you're a female, you can't become a male. That's how you are, and rejoice in whatever you are made in the image of God. And it's necessary for the procreation of the species. And it's part of God's incredible design that he made us this way. And the psalm tells us in Psalm 139 that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139, verse 13, it says, you formed my inward parts, you covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. So you and I are wonderfully made. I don't know if you ever think about your body and just how remarkable it is. Everything fits together, everything works together. And if one part doesn't work, then you're dead, basically. And you have all these incredibly complex parts, your brain, your heart, your bloodstream, your lungs, your blood, and it's all working together to keep you alive. If one part stops working, you don't exist anymore. And they thought in the beginning that we just began as a blob, a tiny little thing, and it evolved into what we are today. But now they've found that even in the tiniest cell is also full of massive information, millions of parts, millions of pieces of information, even in a tiny cell. So you have to ask yourself, how did all that come about? If it didn't come about because God made it. And actually, there's no answer to that. And so we have a creation which is good. And I believe that all the evidence shows us that the creation was made by God, by intelligent design, not by accident. Creation is good, but it's also fallen. But the earth is still the Lord's, and his purpose is to redeem it from sin and from death and from the devil. Of course, we do have an alternative view. I think it was last November, a few of us, Barbara and myself, Derek, Javad, we went down to the Tower of London where they were putting on a show called About Us. was a bit of evolutionary indoctrination. And it was quite a dramatic sort of light show which was projected onto the walls of the Tower of London. There were thousands of people there, young people, old people, a lot of Muslims there, a lot of people drinking in pure evolutionary indoctrination. I copied down some of the things which it said. This is what it began with. In the beginning, friends, there was nothing. Friends, in the beginning, there wasn't even nothing. Shortly after the beginning, it was generally agreed that there was light, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, if that's even possible. Here's a story, but it isn't a story about the universe or science or history. It's a story about us and how we came to be here. It's a story about us. It's our origin story. We're all related. We came from the same place. Now we are here, but not for long, not forever. You see, we're little more than temporary constellations of atoms and molecules born in the Big Bang, scattered across the universe and gathered together for a brief but magical moment. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, the oxygen in our lungs were all forged in the heart of long-dead stars. We're not in the universe, we are the universe. How does that grab you? A lot of people shaking their heads. But that's what they're being taught, and that's not just on this program, that's what you're being taught basically in schools, in universities, in museums, in science classes, everywhere. That's how we came about. In the beginning there was nothing, and nothing exploded, and out of an explosion of nothing, a vast ordered universe came into being, including our own planet, with exactly the right framework for life, and humans and other animals came out of some kind of spontaneous life form which existed and came from the simplest microbes to the complex creatures that we have today. I believe you have to have a lot more faith to believe that than you do have to believe that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. You have to believe that out of blind chance all this could come about. And I say it means a lot of faith. And in this program it said you're little more than temporary constellations of atoms born in the Big Bang. That actually means that you don't have any significance. You're pretty meaningless. And if you cease to exist, it doesn't really matter much either. So there are two major issues which confront you and which come out in this psalm and right through the scriptures. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We're here by the will of God and for his purpose. Or in the beginning, there was nothing. And nothing exploded, and we came into here being by blind chance. And therefore, actually, we really don't have any significance. I don't know if you understand that one of the reasons why so many people today, I think, feel that their life is actually meaningless because they've been taught this stuff. If you absorb this in your youth, if you're told this all the time, in the end it means that you are just a blind chance, and if you're not here it doesn't matter very much, and your life has no significance. If on the other hand, a loving Heavenly Father created you for a purpose, then you and I have a tremendous significance. Significance which goes on right into eternity. And so, because the earth is the Lord's, created and sustained by him, we don't believe this. We believe that God created us and he gave us significance. And it's fundamental to what we're saying. And this psalm is actually telling you that the earth is the Lord's, therefore you and I are the Lord's, therefore you and I have a significance. And the fact that we're here today is not just blind chance. It's as a result of God's will, and God has a purpose for you and for me and for the world in which we live. Makes a big difference. And the will of God actually is for our salvation, not for destruction. If you take the other view, then basically, if your life is just a temporary constellation of atoms, once it's over, it's gone, it's forgotten, and it doesn't mean anything.